Here we are, my friends. Tuesday, another episode of Sales Chatter, the podcast where we aim to help 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP in under 12 months. You know, this week is Client Retention Week, and it all started with this question: what would your life be like if you've never lost a client? And for those of you that have some tenure in the industry, for those of you that have worked for a couple of years in this industry, you know what it's like to get clients and then lose them, help clients out and then lose them, whatever the case may be. But thinking about that question, what would it be like if you've never lost a client? Where would your life be? Where would your business be? Where would your overall health be on, how confident you are with yourself? And today is a very, very special day. Yesterday, Ryan and I talked about our experiences with client retention, both present and past. And today we have a gentleman that really needs no introduction if you've been in this industry for any length of time. If you do not know this gentleman, then I'm going to suggest you head over to his channels immediately, called The Logistics of Logistics, and you connect with my man, Joe Lynch. And we're going to bring Joe in now. Joe, how are you, my friend?
Doing great, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.
Joe, you know what? As we were just talking backstage, it's been forever since we spoke.
Yeah, it has been.
You know what, brother? I've always loved our conversations. You're such a mountain of experience.
Oh, thank you.
And well, it's true. Like The Logistics of Logistics was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to in this industry. One of the first blog articles I've ever read was from your site. And, following, being in that community, seeing how people in that community help each other and just drive information. Tomorrow's data day for us. We bring Dean on every Wednesday. And, that data, but it's not just data that comes from industry statistics. It's data that comes from other salespeople, from other people in the industry, how they see it, their perspective that truly brings a new light. And you, my friend, are like the man that's putting it out there in the industry. So thank you so much for that. So excited to pick your brain on this topic today, my friend, because I know you've been around the block in many different aspects of logistics, helped many companies transform and really turn their businesses around. And today we're going to talk client retention. Before we do that, just share with people how they can get a hold of you, kind of a little bit of your background.
Yeah, sure. I'm in the Detroit area, not too far from you. And I started my career in automotive. I was an engineer, program manager, launched cars all over the world. And I always say automotive's like the biggest, baddest supply chain on earth. I ended up in logistics, fully in logistics. I would say 2009, when everything melted down in automotive, I went to a logistics company. And when I was there, I started blogging, and I'm really glad I did. I highly recommend anybody, if you should start blogging, you start to realize what you don't know about the business. And that I wrote 1 million articles. By the way, I wrote those to get favorable attention with clients, and it worked. Yeah. It's hard work. As you know, you've created a ton of content, Dan, and you've created a lot of great content. So it works, but it's not easy. It's like, I always say, it's like diet and exercise. When somebody says, oh, you need to diet and exercise, you're like, will you see results tomorrow? No. Next day? No. But I started creating content, and then I started The Logistics of Logistics 5 years ago as a podcast. Before that, it was a blog, and now kind of getting more into the media stuff. But I will say this: the reason I feel like, and you probably agree, even if no one listened, I would still do what I do, because I meet so many great people and I learn so much. So when somebody says, oh, you know so much, I always feel like I talk to interesting, smart people from our business every day. Like, this is a good example. I learn every time I talk to you. So
it's likewise.
Yeah.
It's likewise, my friend. We talked about that off air.
Yeah.
Joe's been, just for everybody watching and listening, Joe's been a mentor of mine, for probably a decade now, that I've read the blogs and started listening to the podcast. And just, Joe, you actually are the one that taught me about understanding the market in order to be in the market. Before I thought I was, full transparency, I thought it was the cat's ass in sales. I did. I mean, I was generating huge amounts of revenue. I'm a grade 9 dropout. I'm like, this shit's easy. And then it's when you start really learning about it that you're like,
Uh,
wow,
you,
okay,
you
it
realize
could
you
be a
don't know
lot
everything.
better.
Yeah,
Exactly. You know, you realize that the industry controls your life instead of you controlling your life working in the
right,
industry. It's two completely different
right.
scenarios, you
It
know?
it it reminds me. You mentioned being a great salesperson, and then later on, when social media hit, and
Mhm.
you start realizing, like, hey, I've been doing this. I know some things, but then all of a sudden, there's somebody who's like, oh, I got 10,000 followers, and you see a whole bunch of comments about some post, and you're like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
like, do I got to do that?
Yep. I mean, even today, I took a year off over the last year. I did pretty much didn't post a thing. And I'm going back into things like LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. And I'm reading some of the posts that are getting massive amounts of traction. I'm like, when did this happen? Like, when did
Mhm.
these algorithms promote this kind of like
Right.
it blew me away. Ryan and I were actually my co-host Ryan, he's got scheduling conflicts this week. We were actually talking about it yesterday, like what is this? But I mean, we could have a whole session on, on social media and logistics. I do believe, though, before we get into client retention, one of the things that you said right at the beginning was, you know, you wrote a blog for visibility to clients.
Right.
And I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe if you're not contributing to the industry, um, you're actually in a disposition with a lot of clients.
Right. I've also said this to said this to 2 people recently, younger people. Somebody asked me, "Oh, can you help me get a job in supply chain?" And I would love to help him get that job. But, I said, "Are you on LinkedIn?" He goes, "No, this is a guy from my gym." And, I said, I said, "Dude, you don't exist." I said,
Yeah.
"You don't exist." I said, "It feels scammy." And I said, "And if you don't put a picture on there, it people don't know who you are." Um, and by the way, my picture's like 10 years old on my on my on
You
my,
got you're pulling the old real estate deal,
yeah,
are you?
exactly, I'm a
Right.
realtor. I gotta get my picture updated, but yeah. Anyway, I
It's funny because I'm looking for a picture of you this morning and I'm like, damn, he looks good. Like I go, man, like I haven't spoke to him in about a year, but damn, he looks great. And then and then when you got on, I was like, and not that you don't look great, don't get me wrong.
yeah, yeah.
That's not what
I
I was
just look
going for.
10 years older, great. Thank
That's it.
you.
That's all.
Yeah.
But you know what? My wife and I were talking about it last night. We were having a family party in a couple of weeks, and it's like, how long has it been since we had a family party? Because there was like COVID, and then I got sick, and it was like,
Oh,
holy
yeah.
crap! Like we're talking 4 years. Like it just flies like this,
I said
and it's
that
actually a
I said
great
this.
transition. Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I feel the same way when and I didn't I didn't get sick like you did, but before COVID, when it's basically prior to COVID, I go, God, well, this feels like 10 years ago now. So
It does. It really does. All right. Here we are, both coughing up a storm. All right. The topic, client retention. What's the first thing you think about when I say client retention, Joe?
are they the right customers?
Oh,
Meaning, do I even want to keep them? And I've had customers, I'm sure everybody listening, and I know you have, where you're like, if they're not a good fit culturally, if they demand that you be the lowest price every time and you find yourself having to cut corners and make no margin, then you're like, that isn't a client retention problem. That's probably more of a sales problem. Who am I attracting and who am I keeping?
mm. And it flows right into the client retention. If you're attracting the clients that you don't necessarily want, your client retention is going to be lower than if you attract the clients you
Right.
do want and you can help them serve. You know, one thing that I think of is, and I could be stepping on a limb here, but the last time you and I recorded a podcast, I did your podcast and you did mine.
Yep.
We talked about cost plus and the idea that cost plus in the next 12 to 24 months is going to be the big sell. I have so many students now doing cost plus and they absolutely love it. So
Right.
you were right on that exact
Right.
uh,
And
whatever
and
call it prediction. So
and when you say cost plus, you mean the truck cost
yep,
$1,800 and you pay me a flat fee of
yeah,
$100 a load or 200
yeah,
bucks a load or
or
whatever,
like
whatever's agreed
12%,
to.
16%,
Yeah.
whatever
What
the rate is for the truck. I'm going to charge you an extra 16%, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and I'll even throw this out there, and this gets more towards a managed transportation argument. But if I'm working with you, Dan, and I get you a truck every week, and you're a shipper, and it's $1,800, it's $1,800, and you're paying me 10% of that, 10%
Hmm.
more. So I get 180. It makes easy math. And you go, this is a good deal. And then I go, hey, bad news, Dan. The market jumped. Now it costs 2,000 for that same truck. And
Hmm.
you go, oh, okay. And I go, cool. And I get an extra $200. Did I earn an extra $200? My job didn't change. That's so I would
Mm.
suggest that the percentage thing, which we've always done, there's a lot of shippers are going to say, wait a sec. So the cost of gas spiked and the cost of a truck spiked, but your cost didn't go up.
That's actually a very good point. You see, I look at it with when the cost is doing what it's doing now, where it's dropping,
Yeah, that's just as
right?
bad. Just as
So
bad. You're right.
yeah, so now it's like, okay, well, hold on. Like sometimes I'll win a bit, and sometimes I'll quote unquote lose a bit. But a X amount percentage is a decent margin. And what I've done, it's great that you brought this up because this is also part of client retention. I know we're talking rates, but I've had clients when I go in at cost plus, prices rise, and like, but Dan, hold on. And I said, okay, but here's the thing. Like, what is the margin you make on your
Right.
goods?
Right.
Right? Like if you look at Walmart, they're 50%. Costco's 48, 42%, I think, is what they want to make on their margin. So every company has a desired margin. Would
Right.
I like to make 20% on your freight? Yes. Am I making 14, 15%? Yes. So when cost goes up, I'm making 14, 15% of that. Now, when cost goes up, typically capacity gets restrained. So I might have to work
Right.
harder to get a truck, pay more for the truck, so on and so forth. So it's all variables that we're dealing with. But in a market like now where the cost goes down, I'm still doing just as much work as I would,
Right.
but now I'm making less money because we're on a percentage.
Right.
But I do like the idea of cost plus X that
Right.
you just said. So cost plus $150.
Right.
Cost goes up, I'm still charging you $150. Cost
Right.
goes down, excuse me, cost goes down, I still make my margin. That's actually a really good
Right.
fit for some companies.
I would also suggest this is if you and I were running a transportation function
Well,
somewhere, and
look at what
we're
somebody just said. A LinkedIn user says, you guys are a great fit for each other. So we might have the logistics of logistics
yeah,
freight company starting up soon,
yeah.
brother.
So if you and I ran very nice comment, if we were running a transportation function, and let's just say we're doing 10 million dollars per year in transportation costs. We have we have a boss and we have to answer to him and he
Mhm.
says, "How's the market doing?" I don't know how the market's doing. All I know is what I'm getting charged. So I want visibility into if rates are going up or going down.
Mhm.
So if my rates go up, did my broker charging me more or did actual rates go up in the industry? So and I think the bigger companies expect transparency on that stuff. So I
Yes.
think they're fine to say, okay, we spent $9.5 million uh, on actual transportation. We spent this much on a broker and this much on technology. Good to know.
Yeah.
And that's an expectation that the larger companies are going to always have. And I think
Yes.
that's going to happen as we go lower. So um, a lot of people aren't comfortable saying how much they make. But if it's a fair number and you have that kind of relationship with someone, I joke about this. Years ago, I had a customer who was constantly complaining about our costs are so high. Why is this cost? Well, this is ridiculous. And I remember they're lucky they're in the Detroit metro area. I said, "Can I come over and see you?" They're like, "Yeah." Drove an hour out to see them, brought all the recent invoices and brought all the bills I had. He goes, "Oh, you're gonna show me what you made?" And I go, "Yeah." And as we're going through it, he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, look, you made $500 on this." And I was like, "Yep, keep going." "Oh, you lost $100 here." Right? And then I said, "Not only did we lose $100, that was an expedite." And he goes, "Why'd you expedite it?" I go, "Not our fault, your fault."
Mm.
And I said, "I ate it." I said, "Because you guys were complaining about it." And I remember he said, "So you're going to show me exactly what you made?" And I go, "Yeah, can you handle that?" And ultimately, when we got all done, I said, "You ship a ton of things expedited. We send a whole bunch of LTL shipments in full trucks. The money savings isn't about my cost to the deal. It's about the poor planning on your end. Let us help you get better."
See, this to me is like a pillar of client retention because, and so for everyone watching or listening, Joe started it with what is client retention? It's having the client that works with you, for you, like your ideal client profile, your
Mhm.
ideal client. And you're able to sit down with those people and
Right.
be candid like that and show them
Right.
everything, like lay it on the table and say, here's what it really is. I know there's been this secrecy on the brokerage side with customers for decades. I mean, it goes
Mhm.
well before I started in the industry, and it's been almost 30 years now. But it goes beyond that because it's like as if we were hiding something. Don't get me wrong, Joe, there's people out there that make huge margins and hide. They'd be hung like from a bridge if people saw the margins they were making on customers, right? Customers would lose their mind. But there's other people that run a profitable business and get the job done and show value and help customers with ease of working together. And that's what you're describing, because for you to be able to go into that customer and feel comfortable enough to bring invoices that carriers have charged you, it means you're being authentic with the customer. You're not trying to buy a Ferrari tomorrow. If you end up getting a Ferrari down the road, it's because you're serving a lot of customers, right?
Right.
That idea of client retention is everything. It's like how I
Right.
started the show. What would your life look like if you never lost a client?
Right. And I had an old boss when I was still worked in automotive, and it was an automotive engineering business. And he used to always say, I should say, he used to say, "I want to work with right thinking guys. I want to hire right thinking guys, and I want the customers to be right." And what he meant by right thinking guys was, we know how to develop new product, automotive parts. We want to work with people who um, work that way, who see what we do and appreciate it. And I'll give you one more example. I just interviewed the vice president of safety over at Ruan Trucking, and they're out of Des Moines. Excellent, excellent carrier. Always are winning safety awards, right? They had the very first safety program going back all the way to the 1940s. And
Nice.
one of the things they said is, we always tell people we can never be the lowest price because we're the safest and we're the best. We'll overall, we won't let you down, but we can't be the lowest price. And he says, we have to kind of find customers who align with our values. And our values is we take really good care of our people. Our trucks are always in excellent shape. We don't take shortcuts. And by the way, that's what happens when you have those uh, price-based customers. You find yourself, especially in down times, trying to cut a corner. And we've all done it. I've been there where you say, okay, well, our regular carriers won't take this. Let's look outside and see if anyone else will take this rate. And then you're usually sorry because that
Yep.
it's you go, I spent so much time to make little money, and they don't appreciate it. They're going with the lowest price every single time, and they don't care if we have to cut corners.
Or you book it at a very low margin and you spend the whole night up wondering if the people are even going to show up, if it's going to go the way you should, if the truck's going to be actually doesn't have holes in it. Because we've all experienced it.
Yeah, Dan,
We've
I got to tell
taken the
you,
cheaper rate and it's completely backfired on us.
right, Dan,
Completely.
there was a friend of a friend, well, actually, a friend of my cousins, and he introduced me, and they move lotto tickets, and I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And the guy's like, "You got to win the low price." And we didn't take business like that at the 3PL I worked at. What we'd say, we'll take all your business, we'll save you 5% over the course of the year, maybe 10%, but we're not gonna. I don't want to save you $50 in the next load. I want to save you 5% on your spend. So anyway, broke my own rule where I I bid for it. We won 1 lane or 2 lanes. I remember the first time we did it, the guy said, "Now here's the thing. These are lotto tickets. They had to go from Michigan down to Louisiana." And he goes, if it's 2 days late, I have to call the FBI and report it." I was like, "Well, okay, well, it's not gonna be a problem." Well, then I realized that the rate that we had quoted was really tough. So we had to go with a carrier we never worked with before. It was delivering like on a Monday. Got a call on over the weekend. "Hey, we broke down, but don't worry, we're still get it there like Monday afternoon or Tuesday." Cut to the chase. The FBI was called. and um and I called this guy because he's a friend of my cousin's, and I said, "I guess we're not working together anymore. But I'm telling you, you shouldn't be looking for the lowest price when the FBI has to be called. It makes no
Mhm.
sense." I said, I have no desire to do this kind of business." And I said, and you're every day, you're taking a chance." I know this is getting off on a topic that we're not
No, no,
exactly
no.
talking about.
It's right on topic.
Yeah. But do I really, when somebody says, "Well, what do you need to retain him?" "Be the lowest price and never be late." Well, okay, good luck.
Mhm. Mhm. It's I very quickly in my career, it was actually the corporate lawyer that sat down with me very early in my career. I landed Dell Computer, and
Wow.
um, I was like the first broker to get in there, and then UPS Supply Chain Solutions took over. And I remember we were making great margins, $300-400 out of Tennessee to Ontario, and probably $500-600, $700 out of Texas. Um, and costs started going up, but Dell wasn't ready to move their rate. So I kept taking a lower margin because I knew how important it was to pay my supplier. I had one supplier doing everything. And they were doing an amazing job. They were on time. I got everything I needed. They invested in like sat me to log into their satellite when that was not really a thing
Right.
for transportation companies to give that to customers. Just A1 people. And so I kept taking a reduced margin. And I remember the lawyer for the company coming in and saying, "Can we have a chat?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Listen, I have a concern about this account." And I said, "Well, why?" "I'm making like 6-7 grand a week in profit off the account." He goes, "Yes, but your margin per load is really low. Like you started at 300, 400, 600, 700. You're now down to like 150, 200, and like 300 and 400." And he says, "And here's the reason. They're like $1.6 million loads. One load, we've lost all the profit for the year because fighting it in court, that if insurance doesn't like there's
Right.
all these variables that we don't understand." And he said, "So I need you to go back to the customer and see if," and this was like kind of my first realization of client profiling. And he says, "And see if they're willing to understand if a load is lost, there's a big mountain of trouble we got to climb, and you need to maintain a certain profit margin in order to be financially responsible for that."
Right.
And I remember going back to Dell, and they said, "Not a chance." Or UPS at the time, they said, "Not a chance. Like we have other carriers that'll take the freight."
Yep.
So I realized, because my company didn't want me to keep it at those low margins, so I actually gave it to the transportation company. I said, "Here's the contacts. Here's everybody you speak to." I unfortunately cannot make a profit to sustain having $1.5 million loads, seven,
Right.
eight, nine of them going down the road a day. Now, some sales reps might say, "Dan, you gave up like 6, 7 G's profit a week." And I said, "Yes," because what happened actually, probably about 2 weeks after, was one of the loads got stolen. So 2 weeks after they denied the rate increase, we had a load stolen. One of our guys went into a truck stop, came back out, truck was gone, just like within three
Dude,
minutes.
that's
They came and
crazy
stole the truck.
money.
Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, cargo cats were involved. Like there was police following these trucks. Just pick one and they'd follow it. Like it was huge because of, like, I mean, you're talking, gosh, back in the early 2000s. So I mean, 1.5 million of Dell computers on a truck. There wasn't the tracking ability where computer, code, like the serial number. There was none of that, right? So can imagine how lucrative it was for this. So, but it brings me to my point of client retention is, I thought that customer was the customer. Like, we're going to be together for life. We're going to be this. And as soon as it was kind of lopsided where I said, we're because of this, we need this. They were like, no, not happening. I have
Right.
other people that can do it. I realized I was a number. And
Right.
that's when I started to put things like client profiling into perspective. And I started to say, okay, how do I ensure that Joe is the right client for me? So my question for you is, what is your present um, formula framework for ensuring that you get the right people on the bus the first time?
Well, I think no easy answer for that, but I will throw this out there. I think transactional business is tough because people who are doing the transactional business, they want to behave that way, and it's kind of difficult to. I've said this before. We've all heard this thing. Oh, we all need to um, educate our customers. Well, you might if right now you're ha- have a certain belief system, I only do transactional, you always have to win the lowest price. Good luck trying to convince them that they should have a managed trans solution. So if you're playing in that space where it's lowest cost, I think it's a difficult place to be, and I would suggest that you have to do more with less. You might want to get technology, but getting back to it, me myself, I don't want to work in that transactional space. If I got to win it on the low price every single day, I don't want it. And I've said this before to shippers. Well, I don't want to say it. When I was still selling logistics services, I remember I would call somebody and they'd say, "Oh, hey, that's great. Yeah, we've got 6 loads going out today. Let me send you an Excel spreadsheet and you fill that out." And I would say, "No, that's not how we work." And they're like, "What? You're not interested in the loads?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm interested in what you do year round. I don't want to save you $50 on today's load. I want to save you 5 or 10% on your yearly spend." So again, I think this gets back to if you're stuck in that transactional business and you think this is where we're going to stay, I think you need to automate. You need to get some technology that allows you to do more with less because somebody else who you're competing against is using tech
hmm So, what would you say
to
to
lower their
somebody in
costs.
today's environment, right? Today's environment, capacity's high, right? We're kind of we're all competing for the same freight, if you will, quote
Right,
unquote. We're looking at even contracted rates dropping, spot market
right,
dropping, all these everything is dropping, and we're trying to get customers. One thing I've heard over and over again from a lot of students is, Dan, I make the calls and customers are saying, I can't keep those people that were there for me during the tough times as busy as I'd like to. So I'm really not bringing on any new carriers. And it's interesting because, if you can't get the clients, you can't retain the clients.
right.
And it's, clients are calling and saying, hey, listen, we need to talk about numbers. We need to talk about rates. What are some suggestions that you would have for a salesperson going through those scenarios right
Right. I think, first off, we want good you got to do the basics, which is excellent customer service. And
now?
also, you want to have a great relationship. If you can have
Yeah.
a great relationship where you can be open and honest. And by the way, Dan, I've said this on my podcast. I've probably said it to you in the past. In my experience, it doesn't matter what business you're in. Anybody who holds me at arm's length, I'm never going to keep them for the long term. So if you're one of my customers, I say, "Hey, Dan, can we have a quick conversation on Friday to talk about the last month's loads?" And you're like, send me an email. Right now, and you can never talk to me. We can't do a QBR. We can't have a weekly or monthly chat. I know at some point you're going to leave me and you're going to say, because you
Mhm.
don't do what you're supposed to do. And I was like, it's because you never told me. And
Yes. Yes.
um, if I can have a personal relationship, that's a big plus. If I'm in part of that personal relationship, if I can get the right feedback where you say, "Joe, we love you guys, but you don't do this and this." Well, we'll do it. I didn't know, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so I want that feedback, and maybe there's some customization. This is a little bit of maybe wishful thinking in some regards, but if I can find out something that you need from that feedback that maybe other guys aren't delivering, you go, and so maybe I added an extra field to my TMS that they're like, "Hey, the reason I work with Dan is because uh, he does something that the rest won't do or
Yep.
haven't done.
Hmm.
And I'll throw one other thing out there is
Yeah.
the whole idea of a niche, you know. So if we can say, if I can call you Dan and you're over at a retail location, I say, hey, Dan, I'm most likely going to send you an email. But when you get that email, if I say something like, hey, our company specializes in retail, we're already working with Costco and Target, and we'd love we understand the problems you have. Well, that means a little something, doesn't it? And because
Hmm.
I can do some of that customization. The challenge we all have right now is this is a commodity space. So right now, when you go to the grocery store, you see eggs. Now, when I was a kid, you were a kid, there was eggs where eggs were eggs. There might be extra, there might be jumbo, there might be extra large, but the prices were kind of, there was just basically different grades of that commodity. Now all of a sudden there's organic eggs, cage-free eggs, because those guys want to put a little extra money on it. Same with, um, I joke about it, but it's same with these mobile phones we have. When I was a kid, you went and got a phone from the phone company and you didn't say what you wanted. You pick a color.
Yeah.
Now people sleep in the street overnight to get the brand new phone.
Yeah.
And so they turn to what is a commodity business into something that's not a commodity business. And
Hmm.
this is much harder than it's easy for me to say that, but I think what you want to do is get out of that commodity mindset. Because a commodity means, Dan, explain to me why your jumbo egg is worth more than Joe's jumbo egg. If
Yep.
you if
And
and
when you're a commodity, you're operating within usually rates, because a resource and a commodity are two completely different things. If you're an egg with twice the protein as a regular egg, you're no
right,
longer a commodity.
right.
You're a niche and you're a specialty.
Yeah, by the way, I've said this before. When I was growing up in the 80s, I'll say this. In the 80s, coffee consumption was going way down because people weren't drinking coffee as much here. And the whole industry said, yeah, but no one will pay extra for coffee. So all they were doing is cheapening their product. And then some companies popped up like Starbucks, but there was
Yep.
others who popped up and said, yeah, we're going to have a premium coffee and we think people will pay for it.
Yep.
And now basically the leader in the coffee space is the premium coffee,
Yep.
where you go in and people say, oh, I paid $5 for this special coffee. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, it was unheard of that you would pay extra for coffee.
Hmm.
So I think we can see all around us businesses that went from lowest price only, which was, the commodity market,
Yep.
to how do we get out of that commodity market?
Hmm.
And again, I don't want to play. I don't. I know people do it, but I don't know how you survive cutting corners all the time, finding the cheapest carriers, finding guys who are borderline unsafe.
Yeah.
You're playing a dangerous game.
So it sounds to me, if I were to be reading between the lines of what we've talked about today, client retention starts with customer profile,
Oh,
getting the
I think
right
you're
people
right.
on the
That's a
bus.
good point. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. And yeah, and if I could throw one other thing out there, I wrote
Of
down the note
course.
is um I think social media plays a role here. So if you can talk about how you guys are safer or that we take better care of our people than any other broker, and I have people on social media. So maybe I'm a shipper and I look and I go, you know what I like about Dan? First off, Dan's educating the entire industry with content. He's sharing his knowledge freely. He's got some employees and they seem to love it there. They got high retention of their employees. Those are the values we want to be associated with. They might pay extra. And by the way, we buy for irrational reasons and then we justify them with rational reasons. And so if I say I paid extra to Dan Deigan, but you don't understand, Dan is they have a premium product. Why? Uh, Because right?
Yep.
We're paying
Yep.
extra. You got to be able to justify it. But we think about it next time you go to the store, guys, when you're walking around and putting stuff in your cart, ask yourself why you're buying this. Because sometimes you go, oh, I buy the generic beans or beans, right? Then you go over and go, I always buy Tide because Tide is better than the other soaps. Is it? No, that's what your mom said 30 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
you just made it.
Well, you know what? Bring it back to what you were just talking about, right? These,
Right.
right? So
The
this is
mobile
the
phone.
iPhone 14 Pro Max.
Do you sleep in the street for that?
No, I didn't. But here's the thing. Why did I need the Pro over the regular? So I'm reading it and I'm going, oh my God, it's got the supercharged chip. Oh, it's got this camera. It takes the same pictures as everyone else. I use it to text, to get emails when I'm out, and to play music in my car.
Right.
To give me notes, to remind me of things, to update my calendar. Can anything do that? Yes. But
Right.
the marketing is what got me into this Pro
Right.
Max. So Apple's realized that I'm their demographic, I'm their ideal client, because even though I don't use half of it, it's like buying a vehicle. You know, I remember when I bought my Fusion Energy, it was a plug-in hybrid, and I wanted a plug-in hybrid, but I went to the Platinum Edition. Oh my God, it parks itself. Oh my gosh, it's got like downhill adjustment. I can turn on and off the sensors. I never used it to park myself. I never turned on and off the sensors. Like I use the heated and cooling seats, and I use the air conditioning and heater. That's it.
Well,
And
that's
it's crazy how
yeah.
we build it up in our mind, and
Right.
then it's just. But I'm that ideal customer. I want all those cool things.
Right.
I never use them,
Yeah,
but I want them.
But I think that what we can all do with our marketing is we do good stuff and then we
Yeah.
promote it online. And by the way, that means you keep your website looking good too. We buy for very irrational reasons. So if I go to your website and I go, oh my God, I had no idea Dan and his company is so tech centric, and I didn't know they specialized in retail. And by the way, if you have enough content on there that gives them reason to believe that this is all right, that Dan
Mhm.
is a retail expert and he uses technology to lower the price, maybe I'm buying in on that. And but obviously the more true it is, the better for everybody
Mhm.
involved. So
I'm doing a course, and it what you just said actually brought up. This is so true. So I started a course this morning, and one of the things they said is we get so fixated on how special our products and services are and what they do that we forget about how they are a solution for our customers,
right,
right? And it's that to me goes back to the core of client retention. What solutions are you providing for your customers? And if your client avatar, if your customer profile is cheapest rate, are you supplying those solutions? Because if you're not, you're going to lose a
right.
customer.
Yeah,
If your customer avatar is resource and you're not staying up on all the latest trends, staying ahead of the change curves, letting your customers know, hey, like perfect example, when when the ports in Texas drudged or whatever they call it out so bigger ships can come in. You knew there was going to be a boom of ships hitting Texas because California was so backed up a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now,
right.
that anyone delivering freight to Texas, if they weren't in the know, the rate to Texas bottomed because there was so much freight coming out of Texas, they had to
Right.
pay, you know what I
Right.
mean, more money to get freight out. So if you had a customer going to Texas, anyone and their brother that was calling your customer as a sales lead was giving cheaper rates than you were. And for those that didn't pay attention, they actually ceased to be a resource for their customers because they should have been, hey, listen, FYI, with the new, the new ports in Texas, there's going to be a huge influx of freight going to Texas. So I'll be able to get you cheaper rates. Want to talk about maybe upping the volume?
Right.
That's a resource for a
Yes.
customer instead of allowing the industry to dictate where you are. You kind of move ahead of those curves to be that resource. Otherwise, it's transactional, and you might think you're a resource, but you're not.
Yes, I agree. And by the way, what you suggested there, Dan, I think we could go even further with that, which is we all know technology is automating more and more functions. And I think all of us, and anybody who's selling into the space needs to start looking beyond, I'm a freight broker, I get trucks for people, and start saying, I'm part of the retail supply chain, or I'm part of the e-commerce ecosystem, and become a flat out expert on what's upstream and what's downstream of you. Because I think I started my career as a draftsman, drawing lines, automotive parts, and we got paid really well. Then the CAD systems came around, and I was still young, jumped on those CAD systems, got paid even better. And then all of a sudden, over the last 25, 30 years, I got off those systems, um, stopped doing that job. I was talking to my cousin who still does that. And he says,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, there's very few designers or draftsmen, very, very few. Most of it's moved to India, but even in India, there's very few. He says the technology just kind of made it uh, so easy that the job's not really there. Same thing's going to happen with freight brokerage. I think we're going to have a lot more stuff automated. I'm not saying everyone's going to go away, but we just won't need an army of guys to get trucks. So
Yeah.
maybe take that purchasing job somewhere within retail or within automotive or in industrial or cold chain. And you say, I'm a cold chain expert. I get that space. And the reason you're working with me is because I know more. I ain't
Yeah.
just getting you the cheapest truck. I'm bringing knowledge about the industry.
I'm keeping you ahead of every single change or movement or
Right.
pivot in the industry.
Yeah, I joke about
Mhm.
it, but when you got a problem, do you ever you go, "Oh, I got a problem at the house. You know what I need? I need a salesman to talk me into something." You're like, "No, I need a roofer, man."
It's like Catherine Hollingsworth, a friend of mine, said to me. She says, Dan, think about it. You're in your house and you trip and fall and hit your head, and you're bleeding from your head, and somebody knocks on the door and they're trying to sell you pots. Is that a priority right now? No,
Right.
you need a doctor. You need a
Right.
nurse or somebody to come knocking on your door.
Right.
Like that's what we're looking for. And if
We're
somebody
looking
says,
for
"Hey,
experts.
I'm selling pots. Are you interested?" No, thank you very much. See you later. They're not,
Oh,
"Oh, I see you got a cut on your head. I could do that too."
I
And I could,
joke.
you know what I mean? It's
Right. I joke about this, but I don't even think it's a joke. Let's just say you said, me and the wife are going to go out to Napa Valley, take a nice vacation, see some wineries, just get away from it all. You start going online and you're looking for cool places to stay. You're looking for bloggers who might write about it. People wrote articles. You're looking for tour groups. You're doing all this, and you're probably over 6 months or a year kind of collecting this data and looking for experts, looking for
Mhm.
insights. And if somebody called and said, "Hi, Dan, this is Joe Lynch. I'm from Apple Tours, and I want to talk to you about trips," you'd be like, you wouldn't even it'd be a click, be like, you're not that they are a salesperson and they're coming at you and they have what you need, but you don't want to get it that way. You say, I'm looking online. You probably don't take the call. You might find that in your spam folder later on and
Yep.
go,
Yeah.
and they say special rates for Canadians to Napa Valley, and you would have never saw it because you just like, hey, it just got went right by me. And
Yeah.
so that
Exactly.
online experience matters. And says, then getting back to that, social media gives you an opportunity to share what makes you different and special, to
Yes.
prove a little bit that you aren't a commodity, but you have to actually change your service and prove that out.
I've often said to years ago, I used probably 4 or 5 years ago, I used to say to every sales rep, back in 2019, 18, if you don't have a website, I think every rep should have their own personal website. Now it's more LinkedIn. you
Yes.
know, um, you talk to a lot of, I talk to a lot of logistics managers. And I find I always see them on my LinkedIn profile within a day of speaking to them. And I do believe, I mean, LinkedIn, I think, has changed its algorithms. It's kind of pissing me off lately, but it is what it is. Um, it's a resume. Most of the people we speak with and most of the track managers are like, listen, I'm going to go to LinkedIn just because it's easy. I can kind of creep around. Not too many people know you're creeping around. It's a business profile, all this kind of stuff. And use that as your medium
Oh
for your
yeah.
content, right? I mean, you look at your logistic group is ginormous on LinkedIn, right?
Well, right. But it's interesting. I've had people say this. They say, "Oh yeah, we're about 300 million in sales and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh okay." So I'm looking on LinkedIn. Oh, you got 10 employees. Wow. I
That's
don't think
massive profit.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I
Like,
don't think
you
so.
know,
And so, and I would also suggest this. I go online and I follow some people online who I'm connected to, some friends, and I'll use Charlie Safro. She owns CS Recruiting. Uh, they specialize in this space. I saw Charlie at TMSA, Transportation Marketing Sales Association in Savannah. And I said, I'm really impressed with what you post on LinkedIn. I said, she goes, yeah, I've been doing that. I've been posting, I think she's 4 or 5 days a week, at least 3 days a week. Interesting stories about her business, about her personal life, the overlap. And she has like 40 employees. I don't know how she does it. So all of us are sitting here saying, well, I don't have time for that. I can't create a nice post. Ben Gordon from Cambridge Capital, one of the kingmakers in this space, who's an investor, private equity advisor, done extremely well for himself. I asked him when he was on my podcast, who creates your LinkedIn posts? He goes, me. He goes, I'd like to outsource it to somebody. I'd love to have somebody but what he'll do is he'll read something in the Wall Street Journal, comment. Now, is that going to get you business? Not right away. It's like again, getting back to diet and exercise. I dieted all day yesterday and I went to the gym and I went for a walk and I weigh the same and I look the same.
yep.
Well, you got to do it for like a long time and it's going to be a real slow go, but those are the habits we got to get into.
Yeah. And you know what? And here's the thing, the more and more people start looking, the more and more they realize, like, if you're looking to invest and you just happen to come across him, you start following him, you start learning that he provides value. So you know what? I think I'm going to do business with him. And most of the time, it becomes inbound reaching, that people reach out to you inbound
Right.
when you're providing value to the market.
You also get to know them. So Charlie
Yeah.
Safro, you feel like you know her. You look at her. If you're connected to her on LinkedIn, maybe you're
Mhm.
looking for a job at some point, or you're following her on LinkedIn, and you look and go, well, okay, she's sharing a part of her life. Um, she's a mom, she's a wife, and she's a very successful business owner, but she's sharing great stuff. And I know a number of people like that, and I always think you don't do that instead of making cold calls. You don't do that instead of sending emails out. You do that after work. You do it
Yep.
first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. You do it some other time and say that is in addition to the day job, because uh, there is no substitute for what you're already doing to get
Yeah, the golden
clients.
hours, as Jeb
Yeah.
Blunt says, in addition to the golden hours, because you can record a video at any time. Nobody knows if it's during the
Yes,
day or
video.
at
Yeah,
night.
I didn't say video, but video is another great way. And
Yeah,
by the way, there's people who are building big audiences on Instagram and TikTok. I don't know. By the way, I have bought things off of Instagram. I don't have TikTok. I'm afraid I'd waste more time than I already do. But I have bought stuff. I saw something on Instagram. It was a cool webcam, and I bought it. Don't even like it, but I bought it.
yep, and that's it. And you know what? The marketing, for all who's watching and listening, it's not a, hey, we have trucks here, we have trucks there. Hey, we're looking for, like, it's adding value. Hey, did you know that this market is turning? Did you know that we've noticed an increase or a decrease in the last couple of weeks? If you're going to this market, watch out, or talk to your customers, or like, share the information, because customers want that. And
Yes.
just to kind of reiterate what Joe and I talked about today, it's that client profile, man. That's everything when it comes to client retention. Like, really know who you want on your bus. As Simon Sinek says, get the right people on the bus to start, and it might be a slower grind, just like Joe said. Like, ideally you might talk to 10 prospects. None of them are going to be your ideal client, but you got to keep going. You got to
Right.
keep moving, because eventually you will find that one. And Joe, one thing before we go is, I've found when you connect with like-minded people. So we'll look at it from many aspects. You and I, like-minded. The second we started
Right.
speaking, we liked each other.
Right.
And you can consider us in competitive businesses, because we both help train
Right.
salespeople, and but
Right.
there's so many fish to see. With
Right.
Chris Jolly, who has a great podcast,
Right.
helps train salespeople, right? Like you got all these people in our space. But the thing is, everybody has that kind of niche that they cornered off, and everybody has the ability to help. And things that
Right.
I speak to you about help me in my daily life.
Right.
And as a sales rep, when you're going out to these customers, stay in your lane. Like, you
Right.
can't be everything to everyone.
Right.
Some people are going to like you, some people aren't. But when you connect with somebody that's like minded, our relationship went from a normal stretch that would take this to this.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it's like we're texting each other. And if you needed me, I'd drop everything and help you
Right.
out. Same thing with you. It's like, this is what true partnerships are. And
Right.
one thing I really enjoy that you said, if they keep you at an arm's length, you got to really pay attention to that, because, hey, listen, I'd like to do even, like you said, a quarterly review, business review. I'd like to do a QBR, or I'd like to talk to you about the volume this month. Yeah, I don't have
Right.
time right now.
Right.
That's a red flag, because it's like,
Right.
whoa, hold on here. Do you not believe that I'm a direct extension of your business?
Right.
Because if you
And
don't, COVID should have taught you that
right.
logistics can get real friggin' expensive if you use the wrong people.
Yeah. That and by the way, I've experienced that myself. And sometimes when you lose a client, you go, I should have done more. And by the way, I look at my own business. I have sponsors, I have advertisers. I talk about the top of the funnel. So some days today is all about the top of the funnel. How do I get something in there? Some days it's about bottom of the funnel, close those deals that are maybe open. But then I also have other days where I say, what do I need to do for my existing customers? And can I do anything extra? Right. And I'm big into making introductions. So that's what I try and do, because I do talk to 3 people a week on my podcast. So I'm always saying, hey, you should talk to my customers. It that bottom of the funnel I've ignored sometimes, that means I want customer feedback. I want that customer relationship. They need to know that I appreciate them and that I'm going above and beyond if at all possible. And again, this all those things I just described, if they aren't interested, if they say, yeah, that's all cool, Joe, you're not lowest price, then
Now,
okay.
again, see you later. But
Yeah.
Joe,
You
you're
want a sleazy
talking about,
you want a sleazy one
yeah.
night stand, and I wanted to get married. So
Yep, exactly. Have a great day. Enjoy it, and enjoy everything that comes with it. Um, but it's there's a reason we're doing an entire week of client retention on Sales Chatter,
yeah,
because it's a topic that's not really talked about. It's like, if you were to speak to any customer, it's like, why do you stop using something? Well, because I started feeling like a number instead of a client,
you're
right?
right.
I felt that, this they got the business and everything was great, and then they got other customers, and I kind of went to the wayside.
Yes.
Like, these are
You
things,
took
real
them for
feelings.
granted.
Exactly, real feelings that customers have. And that is a key part of working with a customer for decades. I mean, hell, we go through hell and high water to get a customer. Why would we not want to keep them for decades instead of months? Because then we just got to go through the cyclical cycle over and over and over and
Right,
over. And I've been through it. I couldn't even tell you how many times,
right.
because I
And
took so many customers for granted. Oh,
oh,
they're
yeah.
never going to leave me. I'm awesome. And
I
like, how many people have said that? And as much as I say it, I'm like, did you really think like that, Dan? But it's true. It's like, I'm amazing at what I do. They're never going to leave me. Even when 2008 and 9 hit, when the market completely fell out, I was like, my first thing, any customer that called me and said, hey, we need to talk, I was like, after everything I've done for you, you're going to ask me to reduce my rate? Because I was like, but what if? Okay, what if I would have said, what do we need to do now so that in 2010, because we know the market's going to rebound, it always does, we could have a better relationship? I never asked that question.
right.
I just said, who do you think you are to ask me to reduce my rate? Do you understand how I break my back for you?
Mhm.
And I can't even believe I was that person, but I was, Joe. Full transparency, man. I was
Well,
that dude that was like, all right, F you, man. You
yeah.
kidding me? Like,
Well,
do you
I think
realize what I do
everybody
hours?
has to learn this stuff though, and I think
Yeah.
this is why they listen to you, Dan, because you can learn it. My father-in-law used to say to me, "There's not enough time in life to make all your own mistakes. You have to learn from other people's mistakes."
Exactly. On that note, brother, it was Awesome talking to you. Again, share with people how they can connect with you because I do want to make sure they connect. Join
Yeah,
the logistics
yeah.
group, logistics group. So go, let them know.
So my podcast is called The Logistics of Logistics. You can find it on all the platforms. And I have a group on LinkedIn. It's called The Logistics of Logistics. It's huge. It's like 280,000 people. Feel free to join that. But we also have a company page that has, relatively modest, like 9,000. But connect with me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most likely to be. And we also do some YouTube videos now. All the stuff that we're recording, we also put on YouTube. So and I should be getting an Instagram page going here in the next week or so. We have tons of
Nice,
videos and we got to share them on there. So, but
nice. Yep.
Dan,
Just
thank you so much for having me on podcast. And it's funny, I hadn't talked to you in a while, and when you sent me a note the other day, I was like, why haven't I talked to Dan? And I didn't realize he'd been sick. And so,
yeah.
glad you're
Yeah.
on the mend.
Thanks, brother. Thanks.
The world's a better place
It's
with you and a friend.
thanks, Joe. That means the world to me, man. It's a tough climb. Like yesterday, I just started exercising, back to exercising. Um, and it's an even tougher climb when you realize that you're at like 8 pound dumbbells to do your 6 sets of 10 instead of like 30 and 40. And I did my first swim this morning. So I got 8 laps in where before I got sick, I was like 30, 40, 50. So it's for me right now, it's that mental side. It's that really, really taking into consideration, like, listen, I've lost almost an entire person in body weight, um, muscles almost atrophied, that kind of thing. Like, dang, and it's just a change in perspective, right? And it really grounds you and it brings you back to earth and back to the realization that, going back to what we talked about, you exercise today, I can't expect results tomorrow. But it's like I put in my gratitude journal this morning. I'm so happy and grateful that I was able to do 8 laps today, that I was able to do 8 pounds yesterday, and I'll do 9 pounds tomorrow, and I'll do 10 laps the next day, and it's just that constant motivation and determination to get where I want to go. And if we have that in life and sales and in our career, the world is truly open.
Yep.
It's open, but I understand the profile,
Yeah. You got,
right?
you,
And that's
you
the
got,
big thing.
you got the attitude and the effort. That's all if you keep bringing that, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And, putting it back to all our listeners, it's really what it is. The effort of creating your client profile and the attitude of, I'm going to bring in business that matches that. And I want to get the right people on the bus.
Exactly. Dan, thank you so
Beautiful.
much for having me on the podcast.
Thank you, my man.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.